Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Fallout. We are back with Fallout, and episode 2 is an absolute banger. Once again, there's a lot to break down in this episode, so if you want to ignore your family this fine Christmas Eve, then pretend you've got a bad belly, pop in an AirPod, go to the toilet, and we'll get into heavy spoilers. Now, last week ended with Lucy finding out her dad and Vault-Tec were turning people into communists by using brainwashing tech. Maximus was completely missing from the episode, but we get that rectified for episode 2. We open with a flashback to Shady Sands, pre-nuke as You Belong to Me by Jo Stafford plays. It's a stark contrast to the opening of episode 1 where we saw LA in the past. It's also nice to just having a thriving surface community, especially as Vault propaganda convinced us that this was never the case. I kind of see it as a sort of mirror of the opening of the first season where we saw an idyllic life and a thriving community. This was then destroyed by nefarious forces infiltrating things, much like we have here with the mind-controlled man with the cart. In season 1, we also had the projector begin to burn, which created the effect of an atomic explosion. Shady Sands was of course destroyed by Hank as Vault-Tec wanted to control the post-apocalyptic world. However, this city was a major threat to their plans. As we see, it's a thriving society, which in the game was founded by the people of Vault 15. They went out and created their own paradise by using the Garden of Eden creation kit to terraform the area. You might notice that everyone's clothes are also pre-war style, showing how the world is still stuck in time. It actually reminds me of how you can find loads of pre-war stuff when looting in the games. Now here we see a young Maximus walking around. In season 1, we saw how he survived the nuclear blast by hiding in a fridge, which was very Indiana Jones-like. That was only shown in a brief flashback though, but I love how we get to see the real origins here. This episode is absolutely incredible, and I think everything production-wise just goes to the next level. As we know from this point, the Brotherhood of Steel then found Maximus, and then he joined their ranks as one of their grunts. As he walks around, we can also see NCR troopers, who are the backbone of the new California Republic Army. After the death of the settlers at the hands of raiders, the NCR set about pacifying the Mojave Wasteland. There's also an NCR Ranger with them as well, which is a great inclusion. Now originally, they were a small independent group focused on freeing slaves. They then unified with the NCR in an official capacity. But yeah, it's very picturesque, and this is an idyllic home free from the horrors of the wasteland. Maximus's father even has his own water purifier, which looks like the ones from Fallout 76. It's an incredible achievement, and I really like how Maximus's dad contrasts with the Brotherhood of Steel, who completely hoard their tech. There's also no rads in the water, which is a stat you need to keep an eye on in the games. If you accrue too much, then your maximum health bar goes down, and then you have to use a rad away. So access to clean water is imperative to a colony's survival. He then mentions how they can grow more crops and rationing could be a thing of the past. It shows just how advanced that Shady Sands was and how it was on its way to doing what Vault-Tec had said they would. But here, it's not in the pursuit of profit, so it juxtaposes them really nicely. Now, as we know, helping the general public rebuild society was never part of Vault-Tec's agenda. Just like the cold fusion reactor, reclamation was a proprietary thing only for Vault-Tec use. Right now, things are thriving though. Old Papa is even considering another child, which shows how optimistic that they are. However, the end of Shady Sands is nigh. A dude watches as a caravan arrives in town, which is pulled by Ibrahim, which is the in-universe mutated cattle. They're used by various factions in the franchise, including the Crimson Caravan in New Vegas. It's through this that we learn how Hank managed to get his nuke into Shady Sands, and we see a mind-controlled NCR trooper. They constantly repeat, patrolling the Mojave also makes you wish for a nuclear winter. It's all they can say, and it's kind of like just talking about the weather, I think, to help him bypass everyone. Chances are, mate, you've talked about the weather with someone today. It's all anyone ever talks about, it's just generic. But yeah, I did also wonder if it might be one of the last things they said before being slapped with the mind control device, and it's possible that it could even be a password or something. It might also be used for a cover as to why they don't talk, and people could just think he's gone mad. Mojave is of course a hellish wasteland after all, and probably the worst assignment in the NCR. He basically then goes into the center of town and drops down with blood streaming from his eyes. Maximus's dad checks his neck and then the cart, which is where he discovers the nuke. Now, due to him seeing the device and doing this straight away, I did wonder if he knew about what the device really does. I don't know if Hank would send the explosives in straight away, and maybe the two fathers had talked in the past. If that's the case, then yeah, it does kind of add a dynamic to Lucy and Maximus's relationship, and I do kind of hope that we get a scene like that at some point. Now, the explosive itself looks just like the Fat Man bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki during World War II. The same design was also used in Fallout 3 for the bomb at Megaton. There, you could either disarm it or, as attempted here, allow it to blow up. Which you, of course, didn't do, mate, did you? I know you didn't do that, did you? Well, hey, I didn't do it. The Fat Man name was also used for a mini nuke launcher in the games, and it's also what one of the villains in Metal Gear Solid 2 was called. Not this game, but it's still where I first heard the term, so I'm bringing it up here. As Maximus's dad says go home, we can also see a pillar which is from Fallout 1. He then seemingly defuses the bomb, only for the failsafe to activate. I love how the Pip-Boy also has a cheerful appearance while holding a bomb, and yeah, just kind of plays into the dark humour in the series. The contrast always makes me chuckle, especially once Hank gets notice of the detonation. Running home, the dad then puts Maximus in the fridge, and we've of course seen the other side of this. His dad imparts some wisdom, saying that you should leave the world a little better than you found it, and it's sad as his son ended up being the hero of a tech hoarding cult, who are just after their own ends. It's an ideal that he's now trying to achieve, albeit being twisted by an elder cleric Quintus. But he does later say a similar line, which is a great little callback to this. But yeah, Maximus has basically swapped one father figure for a warped one, and Quintus even calls him my son. His mum then says how they were just getting started, but now it's all over. Only Vault-Tec is allowed to progress society. Whew, and it's absolutely devastating watching his dad trying to reassure his mother as the white light hits. And yeah, what an opening. In the aftermath, we then see Hank literally washing his hands of his crimes. However, just like we saw with Bob last week, the horrific act is something that weighs heavily on him. In the end though, he puts on a happy face and goes back to Lucy and Norm to try and be a normal family. He reads The Wind in the Willows, and this might be a reach, I'm warning you, but lots of people get this confused with When the Wind Blows. That is a book about nukes and the fear surrounding them, and I didn't know if it was a nod to that. I did say it would be a reach. We then cut to the title, which is covered in the ash of nuclear fallout. Now we are of course going to break down the rest of the episode in just a bit after a quick word from our sponsors. Okay, so I just want to quickly tell you about our sponsors and how they're perfect for movie lovers like me and you. Obviously, you know, we talk a lot about films at the channel that kind of changed our lives and basically made us who we are today. There's so many films I'll think about at just moments in my life, and I have their quotes constantly running through my head, which can annoy people. Voiceover Podcast, though, is a place that talks about the movies that changed how we see the world, and you're definitely gonna love it. Each episode features a guest who talks about a specific film, and they go over how that impacted them and taught them about life. These movies that move us feature a deep dive into the moments in TV and cinema that changed everything, and if you love this channel, I know you'll love it as well. Hosted by Heather Bigley, she's got a PhD in film studies and most importantly, a love for films and TV. The episodes cover all kinds of releases, from obscure indie films to classics to recent releases. They talk about everything from behind the scenes trivia to cinematography to personal experiences. So go and listen and subscribe to Voiceover, the movies that move us, wherever you listen to your podcasts. They're the perfect follow-on from our videos here, and I really think you'll enjoy the discussions. Again, subscribe and listen to Voiceover, movies that move us, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you again to them for sponsoring the video. Now let's get into the rest of the breakdown. Now it's at this point that we see what Maximus has become. We then get a Marvel-style look inside his helmet, and shoutouts to MT for pointing out in our trailer breakdown that the heads-up display appears to have the same meter that Fallout players see when operating the power armor. MT pointed out that there you have the suit hit point meter, or HP meter as it's known. There's also their RADS meter, which calculates how much radiation the suit's exposed to, and a core meter which tells the player how much energy is left in their power armor's fusion core. On top of this is the action point meter that shows how many points the player has to perform certain actions. He's an almost soulless killing machine, and I love how the armor kind of strips your humanity. This scene reminded me a lot of the warehouse scene in RoboCop, and I did wonder if that was intentional. Just like Murphy became a soulless machine, he's now gunning down ghouls. His ethics have been kind of stripped away by what he's gone through. However, on the flip side of this, Lucy's been allowed to have her ethics as her father committed the violence for her. Maximus almost had a chance to escape from the Brotherhood and truly help people, but fate had other plans. The Brotherhood believed he'd killed Moldava, and thus he was promoted to a knight. Where we join him in season 2 as well, he seems to have accepted his fate. He went from being desperate to become a knight in season 1, but we did see firsthand how these guys aren't what they portray. Knight Titus was a complete dickhead who'd never hit the thumbs up, and after filling his armor, he's sort of become just like him. I like how they keep the consistency up in the costume design as well, and we can see the claw marks on the panel, which I think nicely helps him stand out against the rest. However, it does also show that he's basically just becoming Titus. The Iron Man view is back as well when we're inside the helmets, and slag off the Marvel Universe all you want, this was a really good way to portray it. But yeah, Maximus is completely unfazed as he kills what seems to be feral ghouls. It's sort of the power fantasy that Fallout 4 lets you live out, for better or worse. Look, I did have fun with Fallout 4. The mission's completed flawlessly though. We can also see this was a former NCR outpost due to the uniform on the desk. I also kind of recognize this device Maximus retrieves, but I just can't quite place it, so let us know if you know below. My brain is mush of useless movie, game and TV trivia and I still can't remember it. But yeah, it's seemingly innocuous, however it grants entry to Area 51. I'm glad we didn't do a trailer breakdown as well, as I thought they were heading to Hidden Valley from New Vegas and I would have looked even more of a mug than I normally do. Now why I thought that is because that was a place in New Vegas which housed the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. They were sent to the Mojave to secure the Hoover Dam, however Father Elijah, the chapter leader, he wanted to take over the Helios one. It led to a disastrous defense, which in the end meant most of the chapter got killed. You can wipe them out for Mr. House if you like, as he saw them as the greatest threat to his plans to control the wasteland. Sadly, it wasn't included in New Vegas, as the developers said it was too far away from where the game was set, and Bethesda already included aliens in the Mothership Zeta DLC. And there is a little nod to that later on. The guy next to Maximus though is completely shocked that's all they came for, but Maximus just nonchalantly says it doesn't matter and to pack it up. Maximus then arrives back on the airship and the docking procedure looks just like Fallout 4. And I really appreciate the attention to detail. Honestly, seeing that ship for the first time in Fallout 4 was just awe-inspiring, and I'm a sucker for people discovering advanced societies in post-apocalyptic worlds. Like the Commonwealth in the Walking Dead comics. Even though it was just like a regular town centre and something I see every day. But it was amongst the wasteland and looked great. But yeah, this whole scene was incredible and I felt like it was such a step up from what we'd seen in the first season. It felt almost like a steampunk take on Arthurian legends and reminded me of stuff like Mortal Engines, which is a very underrated movie, mate. His mate Dane then looks on and we learn that they're a scribe now. I wonder if the pair will end up fighting though, as they do kind of seem to be drifting apart, and yeah, Quintus is obviously a scribe here. Will Quintus get replaced? Will it cause them butting heads? Lots of things to discuss. We then see two BOS members insert a fusion core to the power system and open up Area 51. The cores are used throughout the games, and they're what basically powers the Brotherhood's armor. I also love how this is rocket shaped, and if you view the nuke at the start as being like that, then you have two rocket shaped things changing the fate of Maximus. Now Quintus then mentions that the Brotherhood's been fractured. Uniting all of the chapters is something he also brought up at the end of last season, and cold fusion is what's going to bring them all together. Each game has had a slightly different take on the Brotherhood, and it's something the show acknowledges here when we meet the other chapters. With a united Brotherhood though, they'll be able to rule the wasteland. The chapter in Fallout 3 gradually moved to a more Guardian role as opposed to retrieving old tech. The Brotherhood just wanted to hoard it forever, believing that humans couldn't be trusted, and I guess we kinda did prove that after the Great War. The Capital Wasteland chapter then aimed to kill the super mutants and help protect the citizens. This chapter was ignored by HQ and they received no resources. Due to this, the situation deteriorated and a group of outcasts split off. However, just before the events of Fallout 4, Elder Arthur Maxson managed to reunite the East Coast Brotherhood. He was actually a descendant of Roger Maxson, the guy who founded the Brotherhood after discovering the awful tech the government had been making. The reunified chapter then shifted towards keeping dangerous tech out of the wrong hands, while also working to rebuild a better public image. Anyway, the sand's blown away to reveal Area 51, and again, it reminds me of the Hidden Valley. In New Vegas, it was protected by dervish camouflage, and as such, it became very hard to find. So while this isn't the game's base, it is inspired by it nonetheless, and I'm gonna try and convince everyone I was right. This is the point where Quintus calls him his son, and Maximus gives him a smile, showing he loves feeling accepted.
My son.
He's been chasing a father figure since Shady Sands, and it's a great way to build off the thematic elements of the opening. He's also spared no thought about wiping out the abominations, and this is something which might also change again when he meets up with Thaddeus. In case you don't remember, he's someone who started to mutate at the end of Season 1. We then cut to Lucy and the Ghoul, and it cracks me up that she calls him rude as Lazy Day Blues by Burt Whedon, Derek Scott and Freddie Poser plays. It appeared in New Vegas under both Black Man Radio and Mojave Music Radio. She's kept her chipper attitude thus far though, and as I said last week, this is very much a lawful good playthrough. Or should I say, good karma playthrough. It also kinda remind me of some of the walk through the desert scenes in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. with it being similar to the sort of dynamic between the man with no name and Tuco. On their walk to the hospital, it also appears that she's recited the whole of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. As we know, she was a vicarious reader and had a book club with her father in season 1, where they read When the Wind Blows. Sorry, Wind in the Willows. It's the same thing. It wasn't a reach. Where they have reached, though, is the affordable hospital where they hear a cry for help. The only hospital in New Vegas was the medical clinic, so this seems to be new. The name affordable is also, playing on capitalism, which fits perfectly with the games. I did hope that we'd also see Dr. Mr. Handy again with Matt Berry's voice, but that sadly doesn't happen. The ghoul also doesn't want to help as well, as he's had over 200 years of experience and is completely jaded by these sorts of side quests. He says how he used to be like her, stupid. This is possibly referring to how his pre-war Robert House mission went wrong and he ended up being labelled a pinko. The hospital's also a wreck and there's bodies scattered everywhere showing how life was ended when the bombs fell. There's also a weight loss clinic and I did wonder if they'd used Vault-Tec as Zempic. Lobotomies were half off as well, so that's where Screen Crush got theirs. Hey, having that? Now, lovely lads there, and if you're feeling generous, then why not check out our merch store right below the video. There we have lots of Fallout themed shirts, including our Ghoul one, Nuka-Cola, and our Brotherhood one as well. We are running big discounts and sales for Christmas though, and have also just launched gift cards in case you want to give your mate the gift of t-shirt. You'd be a ghoul not to. Now, just like most of the Wasteland, it's completely abandoned and can be seen with spray painted words saying dead, 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 dead. This kind of reminds me of The Walking Dead's Don't Open Dead Inside writing, and it does kind of foreshadow what's basically gonna happen if they stay too long in the hospital. There they find a poor lady in a tunic who's hurt, but the ghoul thinks they don't deserve saving and he ends up killing the dude. He then grossly eats a part of the guy and spits it out. As it turns out, the dude was irradiated. Now, these are actually members of the Legion from Fallout New Vegas. The tunics are the same as in the game, and it's a faction that kind of spells where things could be going for Lucy. The two we meet here are victims of the Rad Scorpions, which are an enemy type we meet in the game. Honestly, they're kind of really annoying, but I do like how they add the creepy factor to them here. It's very face-huggery and is overall a really good scene. The one we see here is the New Vegas variant, and it's even scarier on TV. The ghoul must be thinking, why oh why did I listen to that girl? We then see a giant one come out, and to make it worse, it's a cannibal that eats the smaller variants. The ghoul then uses the woman as a shield and then sticks a grenade in the scorpion. Now ethically, this isn't very good. But I love how Lucy kind of reflects this, and her ethics are really put to the test here. She can only use one single stim pack on the woman or the ghoul, and it's a kind of trolley cart test. In the end, she uses the stim pack on the woman as, the ghoul will heal without it, and I'm guessing that he'll have to pull her out of the predicament next week. He says, golden rule, motherfucker, but she says it's only for people and calls him disgusting. Hey, cool it with the anti-ghoul remarks, yeah? She then promises to return, but after taking the random woman back home. But I don't think Lucy is going to have an easy time doing that. She's going right into the Legion of Caesar, or well, Kaiser, as is said in the game, and this likely won't be somewhere where she's instantly left free. The lady also appears to be a slave in the region. In the game, they run around carrying large backpacks, and it looks like a completely miserable existence. They're also just like the Kings, who are a group inspired by Elvis, and the Legion is also inspired by pre-war life. Again, they're led by Kaiser, who does really think about the Roman Empire all the time. And yes, I know that's a joke that we used in last week's video, but it's a good joke. It'll be back next week. Get the fuck out of here. Now, his mother was a worker for the followers of the Apocalypse, who were like a Wasteland Red Cross. However, on an expedition, he was captured by the Blackfoot tribe. Luckily, on his way, he read all about the Roman Empire and shaped the members into the Roman Empire too, Electric Boogaloo, aka the Legion. It led them to face the NCR in the first battle of the Hoover Dam, but they completely got their asses kicked. And so they ended up retreating. Slowly though, they rebuilt their armies. Each settlement they then took over was assimilated into the Legion, just like the OG. Now, Fallout New Vegas gives us a myriad of endings depending on whom we choose to help, betray or kill. You can agree to help them take out the NCR and then control the New Vegas Strip, or just wipe them out. On top of this, Kaiser is also suffering from a brain tumor. There's a great side quest named A Tumor Brute, and you can either remove it or allow him to die. Should he die, Lanius will then take over control of the Legion. It's a brutal society, and considering the showrunners haven't chosen a canon ending to the game, we don't actually know what happened after the second battle of Hoover Dam. We do know though that they will play a role in the show, and I'm very excited to see what the writers cooked up. I'm quite a bit more hyped for this season, as I was boring my wife by explaining that this is technically a sequel to New Vegas, because Todd Howard decided to re-release Skyrim a billion times, Fallout 4, and Starfield. Give me Larian Studios Fallout New Vegas 2 though, and my life is yours. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, Lucy is taking the slave woman back to the Legion, who are just going to enslave her once again. Meanwhile, Norm has managed to unfreeze all of Bud's buds. Yep, the corporate trainees are out of their pods and ready to continue the company dogma. They're confused as to why all of them have been released at the same time though, and surmise that this must be Reclamation Day. This is when the vaults will open up and the dwellers can go up and repopulate/rebuild America. It formed the base out of Fallout 76, the utter disaster that's sort of a kind of MMO Fallout. Probably the worst launch of a game until Cyberpunk 2077. As a side note though, I'm not getting paid for this, it's actually pretty fun now. Got it for like £2.50 a few years ago and it was definitely worth £2.50. But obviously, you know, I'd have a different reaction if I spent all that cash on like special edition versions of it. I remember watching Young Yao did a video saying how shit it was, and it was just I realised I dodged a bullet there. But £2.50? Fantastic. Now it does appear that the Reclamation Day is different for each vault, as the 76 one was just 25 years after the bomb dropped. We also get a little nod to Han Solo being blind after coming out of Carbonite in Return of the Jedi, as one of the Unthawed says,
"Should I be able to see by now?"
Norm then lies and says that Bud Askins is dead, and their final test is to escape Vault 31. Bud is then shown upside down in a bin, and I did wonder if he's dead or just faulty. They then panic, and I love the guy asking if there's anyone else they can speak to. Classic, can I speak to the manager? A lady also sounds shaken up due to someone eating the crackers from her welcome kit, which was most likely Norm due to him being starving last week. It's absolute chaos though, and yeah, this is the plan that Norm chose last week. He may be undervalued and underestimated, but in this episode, he proves he has all the leadership skills of his sister and father. We then catch up with the latter at the subterranean Vault-Tec HQ. He's driving a little golf cart, which did make me think of Austin Powers, especially with the corridors. My guy is also playing with the yo-yo he found last week. It's similar to Reg having the comedically childish lollipop in episode 1. At this point though, he's nuked Shady Sands, killed his way to the vault, and even now is conducting horrible experiments. All the while playing with a yo-yo that one of the victims we saw last week used. Shows a major disconnect between reality and his crimes, and he then heads to the cryogenic biorepository. This is where he then gets more live subjects for the brain-computer interface. The montage here to the plodding music and watching him kill little poor animal after little poor animal just shows how kind of useless he is, but he doesn't really seem to care. However, we do have an idea of where this may be going based off the Weeks Ahead trailer, which we will talk about in the spoiler section. The final mouse actually climbs up onto the chair as well, ready to work before then exploding. But this is why he then goes and gets another poor victim. However, it is questionable how innocent they are. Back at Area 51, the Brotherhood of Steel then enter the hangar, which has the funniest show Easter eggs to date. Inside a working fridge is a frozen alien, which looks just like the ones you meet in the aforementioned Mothership Zeta DLC. It's a pretty neat reference for fans of the games, and these are called Zedans. They featured in Fallout 3, New Vegas, and also 76. Fallout 1 also had its own Area 51 encounter. No one cares about the alien though, and they just push it out the way. The dudes here just care that the icebox works. We then pan about the Area 51 hangar and see it's filled with all sorts of old artifacts. There's a terracotta warrior, the US Constitution and a flag, the Ark of the Covenant, and a weapon that looks like it might be from one of the games. Sadly, I don't recognise this one either, so if you do, let me know below. The whole scene felt like another nod to Indiana Jones though, namely the warehouse scene at the end of Raiders. And start of Crystal Skull, which doesn't actually exist as a movie because there were only ever 3 Indiana Jones films, and then we ended with him riding off into the sunset at the end of The Last Crusade, which was called The Last Crusade because it was the last film, and he rode off in the sunset at the end, and it was perfect, it was the perfect ending. And Hollywood should just learn to leave stuff alone. Now there's also what looks like holy hand grenades from Monty Python, but it doesn't have a cross on the top. However, there is a grenade named that in New Vegas. Also love how the 2 bonehead knights are playing with what looks like a plasma grenade. They even end up setting it off later like an absolute pair of chumps. The voice changer on the armor though cracks me up as it makes them sound like total bros, and they then discover a red car. This pristine car is a rarity in the wasteland, and notably you can't drive in the Fallout games. They get super excited to bring it outside though, only to then just blow it up. Yep, the one potentially drivable car in the Mojave is just used for Gatling gun practice. Blows up just like the one in episode 1 as the knights say, "Oh yeah," which I did think might be a Ferris Bueller reference, as the song "Oh Yeah" by Yellow was used when Ferris hops in a red Ferrari. The Squire's also carrying what is essentially a giant golf bag, and that will forever be hilarious. This and the later grenade scene also shows just how thick the Brotherhood are. They've been completely indoctrinated by the religion and now have to give full devotion. Maximus then powers up the new base using the cold fusion from last season. Now it's here that I feel like we may indeed get the schism between Maximus and Dane. They say that nothing good will come from the cold fusion and seem very disillusioned with the Brotherhood's mission. Also, I've just realised the button under my collar that pops up the tie, that was undone, so I looked a bit stupid. I was going to go back and reshoot the video, but then I remembered it's actually better having something mildly annoying in a breakdown because people will comment about it and boost engagement, so thank you very much. Cutting to Maximus, we then see that he's washing his face. This is something his assistant seems to be very confused by. It nicely juxtaposes Hank washing his hands at the start though, and symbolically ties into their characters. You wash your hands because of what you've done, whereas you wash your face because of how you want to look. Maximus, of course, wants to appear a certain way, and this could tie into it. Maximus is truly a good guy though, but he's caught in this religious techno cult. He then goes to clean his armor and stares at the claw marks left from the last season. It's like he's remembering how far he's come from being an outsider to accidentally becoming a knight. He quotes the Codex after Dane says the armor's only going to get dirty again, and it's something they used to do as a joke, which shows how the pair have kind of drifted apart. This cleaning ritual though is something that builds discipline, and kind of think of it as being like wax on, wax off. The Codex itself is of course a core doctrine and a list of laws that the Brotherhood abide by. The Brotherhood is advertised as being the best place to live out the end of the world, but Maximus could have had the dream life with Lucy. However, life here has a way of never giving you what you want. Now as we see, Quintus is seizing power, and with the cold fusion device they have unlimited energy and thus unlimited power. This means they can take over by force if they need to. Maximus is trying to stick to the simple things though, and I don't think he's quite prepared for how this will play out. He even goes back to cleaning the crotch piece that he kind of got humiliated into doing in season 1. Dane says something interesting though, and that the Commonwealth haven't been included in Quintus's plans. Now this does get to Maximus, as though he isn't specifically a true believer in the religious cult. He simply wants to make sure that something like the Great War doesn't happen again. Quintus is acting alone though, and against the interests of the overall Brotherhood, as he's not CC'd in the Commonwealth. Now in the game, Elder Maxon led the Brotherhood to post-war Massachusetts. They ended up fighting against the Institute, who were a secretive organization whose aim was to ensure human survival at all costs. They sent super mutants to the Commonwealth as part of their experiments and replaced people with synths. If you back the Brotherhood in the game, they stay in the Commonwealth and continue. So with this show set around 9 years after the events of that game, I guess they became a separate chapter from the Capital Wasteland ones. They are possibly the strongest chapter in the game though, hence Quintus wanting to get one up on them. We then see multiple airships arrive, just like the Commonwealth sending the Pridwin in season 1. We have a representative from the Grand Canyon, which is a location that's been mentioned in the New Vegas DLC. There's also a Yosemite chapter, as well as one from Coronado, California. If you're an X-Files fan like me, then chances are you'll recognize Brian Thompson from his role as the shape-shifting alien bounty hunter. X-Files, of course, was heavily linked to Area 51, so I did appreciate this inclusion. He's also been in a video game adaptation before, most notably Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which the less said about the better. Quintus boasts though that his chapters secured the relic, and it's here we get the true problem he has with the Commonwealth. He says how they would take cold fusion and give them nothing. They seem to be the most dominant chapter in the whole Brotherhood, but with this device, the balance of power has shifted towards Quintus, and they aren't really into sharing. Just like Vault-Tec, it's not about making the world better. We simply have an egomaniac wanting to rule the world and the Brotherhood under his banner. The Coronado leader is also a raging misogynist and says women aren't allowed to speak where he's from. They're a bunch of misfits who have no interest in working towards a common cause. Each chapter has its own leaders, and basically they want to rule their own little fief, so to speak. They all seem scared of the Commonwealth as well, but Quintus tempts them with unlimited fusion cores. It means that the Brotherhood can use their power armor as much as they want in battle, and it will truly tip the scales. I also love how the Yosemite chapter was like, yeah, the Codex, our special doctrine and book, says not to harm another brother, but it's open to interpretation. interpretation. It's just like how religion is often twisted at times to justify certain acts. Moldava intended for cold fusion to power this new world for free. However, it's been taken by the Brotherhood, and it's now up to Quintus as who gets to benefit from it. So it seems like a civil war is brewing between the Brotherhood. Meanwhile, we find Lucy taking her newfound friend back home. I love how enthusiastic she is about how she can speak Latin, and yeah, kinda ties into the whole ancient thing. An extinct language when humanity's on the verge of extinction as well, it's also a really good touch. The woman also says, "You're a kindly profligate." This means a waste of space and is usually what the Legion call their enemies. She tells her to go home as she doesn't want her to be, by the wrong people. Wait, there's a right people. I also can't unsee how she looks a little bit like Norm. It's here that Lucy is then captured by the Legion, who we see standing on the cliffside. This might be Cottonwood Hill, which was where you took a boat to the Legion HQ at Fortification Hill. Again though, as we don't know exactly what decisions the courier took, we don't know if the Legion left there or expanded. Back with Norm, we then see he's sick of these wannabe middle managers. They need a strong leader, and Norm says he's the product of 200 years of breeding and is officially a super manager. I love how the guys were also like, nah, Bud Askins would never make a mistake, only for the woman there to be like, I do hope we really get to dive into what these people thought of Vault-Tec pre-war as we explore the wasteland. I think a flashback sequence for them would be great, but yeah, on the surface, we'll probably find out exactly what they thought. As we know as well, Bud oversaw the armor that Copper used in Alaska, which was notorious for failing. Norm manipulates the group perfectly though, as he knows what makes them tick. He appeals to their obsession with capitalism and the company's ideology. He offers merit dots, which are just band-aids to motivate the team. It shows how obsessed they are with climbing up the corporate ladder that any semblance of rank, however small, will push them to work harder. Like how companies think a pizza party in the canteen, only on your lunch break, is a reward for working hard. And so, like I said last week, Norm's basically playing his own version of Fallout Shelter. Catching up with Hank, he's decided to experiment on a bigger subject and heads to the Premium Elite Plus section. It speaks to how money grabbing Vault-Tec are. It would have cost a lot to get a slot in a vault, but a Premium Elite Plus slot with a plus on the end cost even more. It's kind of a parody of those ridiculous classes on a plane, or like the unending wave of different tiers for streaming services. Like last week I got an Uber and there was lots of different tiers for what was basically the same taxi. What's next? A Fallout subscription called Fallout First? Oh, wait. It's here that he then grabs one of the people who paid top dollar to be in the Premium Elite Plus. The man also asks if it's Reclamation Day, as the music sounds very Fallout 4. Now though Hank seems like he's just a psychotic killer, it does come across like he actually has a code. He's someone who's done everything for his family. He wanted to get Lucy and Norm back and seemed like a good doting father in the first episode of season 1. It's why I chose this guy, as he only bought tickets for himself. Mate, what an absolute dickhead. Yeah, but anything for a bit of peace and quiet. In the end though, Hank blows his head off, and I do wonder what point we're really going to hit a breakthrough. Back with Lucy, she then sees the Legion's flag from the game and is captured by the soldiers. The armor is just like the games, with it being a hodgepodge of gear stylized to look Roman. She says she's nice, which again shows her naivety. In episode 1, she tried to speech check the Great Khans, which ended up failing, and no doubt she's failed it here as well. Now back with Bud's buds, who are now Norm's buds, they're forming a human tower and quite literally climbing over each other to get a leg up with Norm. It's a great metaphor for the corporate ladder and how Norm has ascended to the top. In the end, they respect him as their boss and he will lead them, even though he has no idea what he's doing, which is very corporate. I also love how Norm has the status screen on his Pip-Boy as he climbs up. Busting out the vent, we can see the people who fell victim to the bombs crawling to try and possibly reach the vaults. It's similar to the bodies you can also see outside the vaults in Fallout 4. Here we see Norm following in the footsteps of his sister, but their journey's a bit different. She was one of the best of the best of the best, so that Vault 33 had to offer. She found out her life was a lie though, and that the ideals she held strong in the vault don't translate to the surface. Norm here is having to unlock his potential and lead these naive corporate climbers across the wasteland. Like his sister, he then sees the pier, which we also saw again at the opening of this season. One of the Poindexters then says, "Oh man, the mall's gone," which shows just how self-serving they are and how they're totally out of touch with reality. Back with the Brotherhood, some entertainment's put on for the chapter leaders as two guys duke it out in power armor. One even crotch thrusts and then gets knocked out. He should not have emoted. Maximus is then confronted by someone from another chapter who challenges him to a fight. Quintus is watching though, so there's no avoiding it. He has to show his strength in this. The tall dude cheats though and doesn't even let Maximus take his jacket off. He also pulls out a knife, even though he did say bareback. So no armor, no weapons, that kind of thing. The leaders are unfazed though, as they sit at the top table and smoke their cigars. This is also a great example of showing how uneven this society is. I really hope that he'd go down like the baddie in Indiana Jones, you know, the guy he has a fist fight with, and he would get killed by the vertibird. But yeah, they didn't do that. They're all hacks. Heavy spoilers is better at doing Indiana Jones Easter eggs. Maximus does have to kill the guy though, which further makes him lose a part of his humanity. We see the rapturous roars of his comrades, but yeah, the look on Dane's face, it ain't going well. This is all broken up though as the vertibird arrives, and yeah, Kamal Nanjiani is playing someone from the Commonwealth. So it does seem like they got wind of the meeting and decided to swing by. Now when the trailer dropped, I, like many of yous, I was very confused about who the guy was playing. He does look like Elder Maxon, who as you mentioned leads the Commonwealth Brotherhood of Steel chapter. However, he is playing someone called Xander Harkness. The only other Harkness in the Fallout lore that comes to mind for me is the synth from Fallout 3, which you can find in Rivet City. I guess post Fallout 4, sick jackets and slick back hair became all the rage. So once again, we will see how high up Xander is in the Commonwealth, but I do sniff a war coming. I do like him as an actor, but he did kind of take me out the episode as I just could not see that it was him. I'm interested to see how he handles things next week though, but yeah, just kind of felt like almost like a cameo rather than him playing like a fully fleshed out character. He's not Jack Black in The Mandalorian though, I will say that. But yeah, I know the amount of time he's on screen for is technically cameo length, but I don't know, they did kind of underline him as an actor a lot. To me anyway. Closing out the episode, we then hear Let's Twist Again by Chubby Checker. As the credits roll, we can also see a fancy dress shop with a Halloween sign, which is because the bombs fell on October 23rd. There's also a Revenge of Brutus poster, which is the same film we saw a poster of last week. Cooper starred in that, and it says dress like your favourite movie star, so I do wonder if Cooper's going to use some of his lines on the Legion. There's also a Chill John's, which is a real restaurant in Burbank, California. On top of this, we also have a stadium that's filled with Legion tents and gear. We then see the NCR posters used as target practice, as well as troopers who've been crucified. It's the signature execution that the Legion uses, just like the real Romans. But that's it for the episode breakdown, and once again, another fantastic entry. It really feels like the showrunners have a real love for the franchise, and the only downside for me is like the lack of clarity in how New Vegas ended. When will we get answers? I know there was like a gazillion endings, mate, but the fog of war approach makes it muddy for a fan of the games to watch. And I must have answers, I must have headcanon, which is pretty much the entire point of this channel, me trying to like figure out franchises and have headcanon in my head. That's really important. Now, let's get into our spoiler section, and again, we will be ruining some stuff from the trailer, so if you want to stay as spoiler-free as possible and enjoy this stuff week to week, then this is the time to say goodbye as you hit the thumbs up, and I hope you enjoy Christmas, mate, as well. You have a very Merry Christmas. You have the best one. 'Cause I will be doing stranger things. But we all have our crosses to bear. Okay, so throughout the video, we've said how Maximus has been at odds with Dane while trying to live up to what Quintus wants him to be. In the trailers, we actually also see him with his old mate Thaddeus. So it seems the pair will meet up, and he might have to kill him as per rules of the Brotherhood, or let him go and leave this life of steel. I feel the latter is going to happen though, as we saw him wear NCR power armor in the trailers to fend off against a Deathclaw. Thaddeus also says in the trailer that he would have grown up good if he'd grown up in a cozy and penetrable society. This of course links back to Maximus and the ideas he implanted in him. Lastly, I do have a feeling that Hank will use his new device to control Lucy. In the trailer, we see her pass by a door that says simulation, and in other shots, she wakes up in an idyllic vault-style room. So, the ultimate test for the tech would be to go and see if he can make his now rebellious daughter back into the sugar bomb of the past. Lastly, no doubt we will see more of the Legion next week, and we should see who Macaulay Culkin's playing. As of recording this, we don't know who he's going to be playing, but going by the trailers, he's very high up in the Legion. I do wonder if he is playing Lanius, but looking at the character demasked, they look a bit too different to Culkin. Anyway, that's the breakdown. Please drop a like on the video and drop a comment with all your thoughts below. What are you doing for Christmas? What are you doing for your holidays? Drop a comment on the video. Boost engagement. Write your diary here. Make sure you check us out on Instagram at Heavy Spoilers as well, and there you can keep up to date with exactly what we're doing. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos for just 99 cents a month, and if you click that join button, breakdown a week before anyone else. What are you doing for the next week, mate? Just a lot of sitting about the house. You're going to need stuff to watch. Well, we've got hour-long breakdowns all for you for just 99 cents. Now, if you want something else to watch, then guess what? We've got another breakdown on screen right now. If not, though, huge thank you for sticking through this one. I do really appreciate you taking the time out on Christmas Day to watch this. But yeah, you take care of yourself, mate. Have a good one. Go spend some time with your family, yeah? Or if not, then watch another fucking video. We've got some classics on here. With that out of the way, though, I've been your host, Paul. You've been the best. I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.